become like a unified field, then how you interact with this world, it's not like it can't touch you, but you're not so affected by it anymore. And you know what? This is the thing is, the outside world's not going to change. You are going to change in how you participate in it.
Yeah, I think that...
I mean, I think a lot of us have a focus. Go ahead.
It's the second time The Art of Dreaming by Castaneda has come up in the last week, so it's time to go back to the bookshelf and find it. I've read Castaneda, but I read the teachings of Don Juan. I don't know that I've read The Art of Dreaming, but the concepts you're talking about are the same concepts that Gurdjieff and Ouspensky talked about in the 1930s. I want to go back for a moment to the medicine wheel, because as you talked about the 4 going into 7, where you first need to get the 4 working properly in the wheel, and I started thinking about how wheels work and the mechanism where they get off skew. And as you get off skew, there's a wobble. And each time the rotation of the vortex would happen, you'd get more of a wobble if you're not on skew. And I started applying that to Schauberger's theories. And so my head went completely into the clouds, and my left brain and my right brain took out the epi swords and started tossing them at each other. And so the conversation now has me about 3 pages of my notebook with chicken scratch all over it that I'll have to deal with. We've got another person who's entered the room, Jacob, who I've been working with. He's the intuitive Jacob. He reads tarot on D Live. And I'd like for him to come on so that he can say hello to you. And then I'd like for you and Jacob to have a little bit discussion on some of the things that are going on well, Jacob and I are working together with several other people to form... he's not on a mic right now, so he's not going to come on, but at some point we'll get there. What we're going to do is we're going to form a promotion company that works for people who have something to say and promotes us together so that we're cross-promoting and getting things working. All these little frustrations we're having with the way the system works is because our frequencies are working above our electronics, and so the electronics just can't keep up with us. I understand that we're going to have to replace them, but we can't replace them and not have anything to use. You were direct right on that point. The services that you offer to people, both in shamanism and traditional osteopathy, are pretty awesome. So I'd like you to take maybe 10 or 15 minutes and talk about how your work professionally can get out to people who can use the help to change the energies so that people can start walking different paths.
Well, I'm not really sure what your question is, or
Basically,
I'm not really sure.
Basically, I want people to know the scope of what you do and how to get a hold of you so that at the end of the show, when it suddenly goes off, we're not trying to cram information in.
Oh, all right. Well, I have a website, coe-llc.com, and there's I have a few different things on there. I'm still building it. But there's a page there that's, I think it's Holistic Alternative Healthcare by Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, and people can go on there, and it kind of gives a brief thing of all kind of the work I do. Right now I'm really focused in on, walking the red road. Obviously, that's like my main focus. This year, 2018 was, every year, like in December, I get a word, like 2008 was working on my drama, and the drama that I was attracting. And so every year I have a different thing. And so this year with ceremony, it was going to be, it's the year of ceremony. But it's been really interesting because I haven't done a whole lot of ceremony because I have to fix myself, you know what I mean, so that I can, maybe vibrate or align myself with the ceremony. And I have to slow my life way, 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 way down, so that, everything that I do becomes like a ceremony. I also have a YouTube channel, Consciousness of Economics and Urban Farm Project, and I have a lot of videos on there about shamanism. I'm a star kid, so I talk a little bit about my extraterrestrial family and how they communicate with me, and a lot of the different extraterrestrials that I've come in contact with. A lot of them are not good. And, just different things that people should know. Or, if they care to know. And I put a lot of different farming stuff on there. And that's the other thing that I'm really focused in on, is I'm really starting to realize that growing food, restoring the soil is a ceremony. It's a spiritual ceremony and an act that this is where I'm headed towards. So for 4 months, starting in August, I'll be on the road, and I'll be working with a lot of Native people and non-Native people who are growing the native seeds and restoring the seeds, seed sovereignty, and the native seed banks. And so I'll be in Texas and New Mexico for that for about 4 months. So really excited about that. And so I have to go through the process of, learning about the corn mother and the corn seed and where it comes from, and getting myself activated with that. And there are ceremonies that go along with that in order to be able to be friends with the native corn. It's not like the regular corn. It's not heirloom corn. It's ancient, and so I'm learning more about basically the ceremony of my walk and my balance on the earth and the effect of that, and going back to, which is a really primitive thing, going back to the seed to find my way. But I do, for long distance people, I do online sessions through Zoom meeting. It's a lot more private, and I can control like the energy in the space in there. So yeah, I do a lot of healthcare work with animals and land and people. And a lot of stuff like that. So, and I do a certain technique in the United States. I'm I think one of 7 now, but I'm the only one in Nevada that does a reboot. It's a very old, ancient technique that's done to basically the cranium that reboots the whole system and eventually restores 100% symmetry to the whole body. And also restores, proper meshing of the 2 lobes of the brain. And it's pretty intense, but it can actually even arrest disease. It's really kind of an unbelievable one of those doody.
No, it's a pretty awesome thing. It's a very awesome thing. It's a very awesome thing. I remember when you were here and you rebooted me, and it took me a day, but after that, a lot of the physical problems I had were gone. But remember when you rebooted Izzy Dog? She walked around in circles for a little while and didn't know where she was. But she...
I know, well, because she's got that pity, so she's got that reptilian, reaction, and then she didn't have that reaction, and she was confused, like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, it was an extremely fun thing. Izzy is now at the point where she's 4 years old and she's calmed down. Not to the point where she's calm like a normal dog, but she's calm for a pit bull. She and I have a good time. The rebooting process was pretty awesome, and having done it in person, it can also be done through the Zoom room? Can you?
No, I do different. If I do any kind of healing work, the Zoom, when I do, I set people up for Zoom meetings. I usually do, more of I help them with first the basics of healthcare. Like if you have any kind of problems, you have a genetic history of whatever you have going on, so I can get a sense of the person. And then a lot of times I'll use a little bit of, medical stuff. And with some shamanism in order to try to help them adjust themselves. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff that's going on. For example, I'm not gonna give a name, but recently I worked on somebody that was having a lot of issues, and once we kind of went through the whole history and everything else, I noticed that they had a hot stone in their thyroid. They've had major thyroid problems their whole life. Hair falling out, like in high school and things like that. Probably pretty emotional. And I noticed that they had been implanted, like probably some kind of MK Ultra, program on the energetic side. And had this, hot stone, lava stone program installed in them. And then I noticed that that it was running, lava kind of heat down into the earth, and it was kind of like there was these lightning strikes that were coming into the stone in their bodies, and I started to realize that they were being used as a energy generator, probably for, demons and reptilians and things like that on this planet, shadow people. They're all reptilians. They're all reptilians without biosuits, right? So they need those electrical charges, and they need, that's why they like to run power lines. That's why they really like these cell phone towers and these 5G networks, is because these beings that don't have biosuits, who are looking for a new biosuit called us, to piggyback on and hitchhike, so they have like a battery to operate on. And some get more aggressive than others to people. They can kill people. This is the kind of thing that they need. And so she was being used as some kind of like superpower generator. And I wouldn't be surprised if they were using her for like time travel, and things like that, that somehow they could connect into her. So we started the process of getting that program out. And sometimes it takes several times in order to maneuver that program. But sometimes a lot of the stuff that's going on has been implanted. One of the things that I have programmed, something I just recently started talking about, because I don't really fully understand it yet. But when I was a kid, it was before we had, I think we still had records. I don't remember that we had tape recorder. I don't remember having a tape recorder or seeing one during this time period. But we had moved to Idaho, and I was going to this school, and I remember that they would pull out like 5 or 6 of us, just like right out of class, and they would take us to this other room. And now I realize we were being downloaded with information. So because I'm different here, I have, major capacities. I'm a, star kid in a body of 2 family lines of, old bloodlines of healers and shamans and exorcists and herbalists. So I'm probably a good place to put a program. Anyway, the program that I call it the Red Plague program. And so it was interesting to me that during the school period, like nobody said anything to us, even though they would see, like principal or other people come in and ask us to, leave the class, or they'd wave at us, come over here, and then we would, be moved into this room, and then we'd have these cassette tapes, or these players. And it basically would have been like a book on tape, but there wasn't books on tape back then. So then I wonder, if they came to the future, I don't know. It's really complicated, but I know what they were doing was they were implanting a future apocalyptic program in me by allowing me just to listen to this long story that went on for like 6 weeks. And that's all we would do. We could read, we could sit in chairs, we just couldn't talk. We had to listen to the story. And then it went on for like 6 weeks, I think. But then as I've aged, I've realized that one of the energy things that happens to me is that periodically this weird, like, projection thing will come up, and it's about this apocalyptic world. So I have to be really in control of, my daily existence and staying balanced, because I don't want to feed that program that they put in me and these other people to help them project an apocalyptic world, like mass destruction of the whole planet, right? So I'm still working with some of this programming, and I'm still working with staying in control, because I want to see a future where the planet thrives. I want to see a future where everything kind of moves back to pristine condition and people live, more sustainably. So I'm like in my heart, I'm on the total polar end of the apocalyptic world. But there's parts of me that will surrender to that sometimes. And so when that programming starts to be activated by other energies, I have to really be quiet. I have to really be sitting down. I have to really be focused in on not allowing my energy systems, my own computer design, to be activating the red plague programming that they've introduced into me. So this is another reason why we have to sit kind of on our medicine wheel, and in the center, in the balance of it all, constantly, and working with the art of dreaming, and move yourself to the fourth attention, because then we're only going to know what's been downloaded into us, because we're all individual computer designs, right? Even our biological features in our bodies, are part of that system. And then you have the creation or the creator or whatever you want to call it as, the main hard drive. And they keep, because they've had a hard time, let's call it plugins or new software, that these bad people have been trying to download into the main creation hard drive of the originality of the planet to destroy it. Then that's not working to destroy it or to take it over. So they've gone into individually, trying to add in different kinds of mind control programs. And a lot of it probably happened, when we were young and we were in school. For those of us who, I don't believe, I was not an MK Ultra person, not a super soldier or anything like that. But I think because they knew about me, they did everything they could to try to kill me before I got here. So, and try to harm, my family members and everything before I got here. And I'm certain of that now. It took me a long time in life. I'm almost 50. It took me a long time in life to be able to come to that conclusion and not feel crazy. Hey. I've gone to therapists and stuff, and I'd be like, do you think I'm crazy? And they're like, no, you're not crazy. They said crazy people never ask other people if they're crazy or not.
Right.
So I'm like, great.
I would like you to talk, if you would, towards your brain cancer and that part of the stage that you went through, because I knew you first when you were recovering from that, and it's a it's a whole different thing when you have to work. So tell people how you beat the brain cancer.
Well, I just worked with, my own technology, basically. I mean, when I first got it, I didn't know what was going on with me. So from about age 30, I started kind of having, really erratic emotional behavior, and I'm not really an erratic emotional person. I am a big, marshmallow, but I'm not like, whoa, drawn out, and like that. You can ask Lenny. When I was there, I had to deal with some really tough stuff, and I really stayed as balanced as I could and communicated with everybody there. Gave them the opportunity no matter what was going on, and I really tried not to go batshit crazy. So I'm not really like a big emotional person. I'm pretty extremely stable. But I kept going for about a year. I just was like so off the charts, emotionally unstable. I had no idea what was going on. And so I come from an alternative family. So it wasn't like I was going to choose to go a medical route. Recently I've healed the second round of cancer. I had a lymph node cancer in my back that I totally cured. A little bit different than the first time. But so what happened was I had a friend of mine. He was the chief financial officer of a Whole Life Expo, and back then that's where Deepak Chopra got really famous, and he was one of their headline speakers, and they went to four places in the United States, like Boston and Dallas and I think San Francisco and somewhere else. And so they were doing Whole Life Expo, and this is where alternative people really started to be able to come out of the closet and have conferences, and people could come and they could listen to presentations and stuff like that. So anyway, he came to Reno, and before he came to Reno, I said, look, there's something really wrong with me, and I don't really know, like what's wrong with me. And he's like, that's okay. So we came up for like a week or something like that, and I was okay for about 2 days, and then all of a sudden, I got really sick, and I would get these really bad migraines, and then I'd get vertigo really bad, and I literally couldn't stand up. I'd have to like crawl, get to the wall, and then I'd have to crawl along the wall, and then go to the bathroom, and then it would trigger the vomit center in my brain, and so then I would spend days vomiting. And then it wasn't until I'd had my first blackout before that climbing. I was a big rock climber, and I had a fall. Thank God, I had safety gear and stuff like that, but I literally couldn't get off the ground for an hour and a half because I had vertigo so bad. So I had no idea what was going on with me. Now, if I go back and I read the literature, I had a classic brain tumor. Classic brain tumor. But the doctors, I went in, I had a client of mine, I actually had a lot of clients at that time that were doctors that came to me under the radar. So I went in and I said, hey, could you do a blood workup? I'll pay cash for it and put a different name on it and do a blood workup. And so she did that. And she said, dude, it looks like you have premenopausal syndrome. And I'm like, this is like when I'm 31, I'm like, premenopausal syndrome? They just couldn't even get it right. They're like, well, your hormones are so far off the chart. And I'm like, why are my hormones so far off the chart? So anyway, when my friend came, he knew this guy who had been like an alternative, naturopathic doctor for 65 years. The guy was a medical intuitive. He's like in his 80s. And he wanted to retire, and he didn't really want to help me at all. He was tired. He just wanted to be left alone. But my friend talked him into helping me, and so he helped to diagnose me. And then I started I got on macrobiotic diet because I eliminated every food allergy I had. And then I started getting stuff off a black market that was in San Francisco Marketplace. And you could get immune system injections, you could get all kinds of different stuff, certain kinds of herbs, different kinds of medicines. So I would drive up there and I would get the medicines and I would come back. And I had to fix every infection that was still laying dormant in my body because I'd had ear infections when I was a kid, I'd had respiratory infections, I had dental infections, all these different things. And every little thing was stopping my body from healing the brain tumor. So it was for 5 years, I didn't even know, it didn't even cross my mind if I would live or die. I pretty much wanted to die because it was just that tough to live in a body that wasn't working anymore. It was totally broken and literally destroyed, and the physical pain of it was unbelievable. And then it took about 8 years, and then once I really started coming out of having, level 4 or 5 brain cancer, which I should have never survived from. Sometimes I kind of wish I didn't survive from it because this reality is so tough sometimes. But once I came out of it, then I had all these physical problems because I still had kind of a stutter. The whole right side of my body was shriveled up the size of the left side, so my leg didn't work. My arm and hand was really tough to use. It didn't really have a good relationship with my brain. So I had to kind of rehabilitate myself. And, through all of this, there was like really no good medicine. There was no one that I could go to that could help me. And I was in private practice before this, doing osteopathic medicine, but as a massage therapist, so under the radar, because there's no licensing for traditional osteopaths. So there's DOs, they're doctors of osteopaths. A lot of them do surgeries. But I studied old school, with people like in their 90s that died out, So once I rehabilitated myself, and meanwhile I was still working, I still had to keep a roof over my head. And I couldn't really tell anybody what I was doing. And a lot of my friends who found out, that I had brain cancer and that I was choosing a really alternative way, I was being completely away from the medical field, because I explained to them, it's okay if I die. You know what I mean? Life is experimental, so I'm okay with if I die, but I don't want to go have my brain open and cut on and have them dig around in my brain while I'm wide awake and have a tumor removed out of my head. I don't think I could emotionally survive that. Every day feeling my head. You know what I mean? That was worse than, if I was going to die. So over time, I worked a lot with diet, and I just worked with a lot of different stuff. And then I had to spend a lot of time, working on my structure afterwards and getting my brain reconnected. And this is how I got into the rebooting and found the rebooting, because, it was a major catalyst to get well, because it helped to reboot my brain and the damage that was done to my brain and reconnect me back up with my body to make a unified system. So you can be as spiritual as you want. You can fly to other planets in meditation, but when your body goes south, that's going to be difficult to do, because the body is the biosuit is saying, look, we have a full collapse in the system. You may want to have to pay attention to what's going on, and you're not going to be able to override that system unless you stop and you get your spirit fully into that body and you start getting a thing. So I'll add in here real quick. So I've had 6 major head injuries in my life, and I'm pretty damn sure that they've tried to kill me over and over and over again. I've had in the past, some extraterrestrials that came and actually fixed the head injuries. I had a head injury when I was around 6 or 7 that basically a full-blown army rifle was thrown at me, and the butt hit me, cracked me right in the head, and my head was split open, and my brain was actually hanging out. And my mom had to run out of the house and actually wrap a tea towel around my head, and they had to take me to the hospital. Something else I probably shouldn't have ever survived. So the fact that I could actually walk and talk, and I feel more vibrant and thriving than I ever have in my entire life, is because of, all of the work that I've done. The physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, working them all together in the 4 and the foundation, and being in the center of that balance, and not letting people tip me over or throw me off or tip my wheel so everything slides off and then I have to rebuild again. So in 2014, this is when Lenny and I really got to know each other, because he was living in Durango, and I was driving back and forth, so I would drive. I purposely kind of go through Durango because it was really beautiful. I'd stay a couple of days, and then I'd, head to Utah. Then I'd come back through Durango, hang there, then I'd go to New Mexico. Then, so for 4 months I was traveling back and forth across the United States. I periodically pop in and see Lenny, camp out in my van and hang out for a couple days. During that process, this is the first, my star family always gives me, I like them like portkeys, like Harry Potter. I think is the best word to describe them. But what they are, they're things that I'll have an image about, or in the dreaming world, they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, look, this object, look for this object. It's how it's happened my whole life. And I will go and I will So, for example, there was this brick. I always talk about this one because